Y'all probably tired of hearing me talk about weight by now, huh? Over the past few drag racing videos, we've been talking about weight and getting the weight bias right on the car as close to 50-50 as possible. In the last video, you seen me replace these pretty SSD bead locks with the Proline Split 6 bead locks that I used to run to shave off some weight in the rear, because there's not much else we could do to get weight up front, and I didn't want to add a whole lot of weight. But I did find something to help shift some weight forward. This is a servo relocation kit from Morbo RC. What this will do is shift the location of the servo to on top of what I'm going to call the bulkhead here, and then our battery can slide further forward. We're gonna trim this little bracket here and should be able to move my battery stop to the next set of holes forward. It'll shift the battery forward, get the servo even further forward, and that should balance us very close to 45-55 front to rear weight balance. Before I install it, I wanna see how much of a difference we're gonna do. So I'm gonna throw those wheels and tires back on the back and weigh the car to see where we're at before I go ahead and install that. So here we go again, weighing again. We've had the scales on the bench a lot recently in the past couple weeks, and we're also gonna weigh it with the body like we should be weighing it, making sure we're getting a true reading before we do any work to the car today. We're at a 41.59 weight balance, total weight of 26.15 grams or 92.3 ounces. So now I'm gonna pull the scales off. We're gonna take the front end apart. We're gonna swap that servo around and we'll come back and see what kind of difference we made. To do the cutting to this center brace here, I figured it'd be easier and I'd get a cleaner cut doing it off of the chassis. That's why I just removed this whole front section. It was really quick and easy like you saw. I think I'm gonna start with an X-Acto knife actually and just making some scores, seeing if I could score it and then maybe snap it off. If that doesn't work, then I'll get out some bigger tools. Now it's time we can put this new servo relocation bracket together. I'm using a picture they have on the website here on my phone. It looks like first off we need to mount the servo to the carbon fiber plate. We're going to use those same original screws for that. And now we need to remove these top two screws on our front chassis piece. These two won't be needed. They include two countersunk screws because there's a little spacer that goes underneath the bracket, so these need to be longer than original. And based on what I'm seeing, it's looking like I'm gonna have to trim down this little front post here. I'm pretty sure this is a body mount post for like a buggy. We don't use that in this car, so it's not a big issue for me to trim it off. I can definitely tell you this is gonna be a pretty tight fit here. I actually have to pull the bottom two servo mount screws out to even get that countersunk screw into the plate. But now these screws will slide in. We're gonna use that spacer like I talked about on the bottom. And then this whole assembly is gonna slide in between the shocks here. It's gonna be really tight in between the shocks. Just want to make sure before we go too far that I'm still going to have complete suspension travel, which it looks like I do. Got to clean up those wires a little bit, get that wiring set up for that servo in its new location. But it fits right at home in between those two shocks. It's a really nicely engineered bracket that fits perfectly. Last up is just going to be the servo horn itself. We're going to be using a different servo horn now that the ball stud on the arm of the steering linkage is just going to pass through this hole. This servo horn is actually supposed to allow you to adjust your steering trim, centering your servo without actually taking it off of the servo. I didn't notice before, but we actually had to flip my servo around. But now once I get this mounted in here, we still have a nut to put on the back side of this. But I don't have to worry about centering the servo horn necessarily on my servo with it all powered up. I can put it together like this, and then once everything's back together, got all my wiring done, I can power it up, center my servo with the radio, and I can actually turn this back and forth to center my steering and then tighten up on these 4 screws and the servo's centered. Simple as that. I did mark where my original servo horn was and put this servo horn back where it was, so we shouldn't really have any issues. Straight up and down like this should be my center, but it's really cool to have that fine adjustment like that. Just got to get this nut on the back side of this ball stud and put the car back together, finish up my wiring, and then we can reweigh it and see what kind of changes we've just made. With that wiring cleaned up and everything back together, there's two quick things I wanted to note real quick before we get into weighing and seeing what kind of changes we've made. First off, I had to drill a hole, another hole, in the bottom of the chassis where this screw goes in for that battery stop. The original hole's in the front, and that's for flipping the battery the other way where it's in the back. The stop would be right here, the battery would butt up against it there. So I had to drill another hole, that way that stop could still face towards the front and hold the battery in place. The other note is, you could probably see here, I'm gonna have to slot the carbon fiber top plates here to be able to move this Velcro strap a little further forward. I'm not really comfortable with that being my only secureness of the battery. I'd like something a little further forward, so I'm probably just gonna take those plates out and slot them a little further. But now let's get the scales out and see what we're at weight-wise now. All right, first time weighing the car. I haven't weighed it before, so I'm gonna see this as you're seeing it. Looking good so far without the body. And now we're gonna add that body on. And we're at 43.57. Let me make sure we're centered on the scales. Yep, 43.57, front to rear weight bias. It looks like we added a couple grams of weight, about 10 grams you could say. Not too bad. Considering with the old SSD wheels and the old setup with weight, I was pushing just about 2,800 grams. Now we're down to 26. I think I could live with that. You already saw in that last drag racing video that we made some pretty good progress with the car already without this modification. Hitting a new personal best of 219 on the GNSS performance analyzer. And like I mentioned in that video, after that pass I got a little greedy and I believe we were spinning a good bit. So hopefully this will help us next time out to help keep the front end down, help get that power down without spinning, and we can start seeing some even better times. It's crazy to me to think about. I'm seeing a 219 pop up on the performance analyzer and I'm looking for better times. It was a time where I was running 250s and I never thought I'd be at this place. It's all thanks to you guys, all of the support, the encouragement, you guys pushing me to try new things, go faster and go further. So all the thanks to you guys. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in this servo relocation kit from Morbo Racing, I'll have a link down in the description below. This isn't sponsored or anything, I just found it online and I like the kit. It fits really nicely in the front of the chassis, so if you want to check that out, that link will be in the description. Make sure to subscribe so next time we head out you can see what the car will do with this new setup with the weight moved around a little more, and hopefully this will be the last we're talking about weight for a while. Hope you guys have been enjoying the videos. As always, thanks again for watching. Peace.